The hallway smelled like damp textbooks and bleach. Lockers slammed. Kids swore. A teacher somewhere was yelling about cell phones. But Lenora heard something else. A click, like metal on metal. Down the corridor she saw him. The new boy Deshawn, shoulders hunched, backpack torn, and someone older whispering close to his ear. It wasn't a student. Lenora moved fast, too fast. Her heels echoed down the tile. The whisperer turned. She recognized him. Marcus Reed. A name from a parole hearing she'd sat in on months ago. A recruiter. He saw her and vanished like smoke. Deshawn didn't. He stood there, silent, cold, like he already knew how this game ended. Lenora didn't speak. She just extended her hand and said, "Come with me." He didn't move. Not then. But the next day, there was a note in her mailbox. 4 words, block letters. "You're not his mother." Lenora read it twice, then tucked it into her coat, because something told her this boy was about to vanish. And this time, she wasn't going to let that happen. It was Lenora's 15th year at Halifax Middle School, and it showed. The beige walls of her office were lined with old motivational posters, their corners curled like autumn leaves. The ceiling tiles sagged in places. The chair opposite her desk wobbled if you leaned too far right. But Lenora didn't care. She wasn't here for comfort. She was here because this school, this noisy, forgotten, underfunded place, still had kids who needed someone to notice them. Kids like Deshawn. He showed up the second week of September. No records from his previous school. No parent contact. Just a late enrollment form signed with a smudge instead of a signature. Lenora spotted him before the front office even called her. He walked differently. Not scared. Not cocky. Just prepared. Like he already knew who to ignore, who to watch, and how not to be seen. When she offered him the standard intake packet, he took it without a word, didn't flinch, didn't nod. But his eyes, those deep, slow-moving eyes, rested on her face just long enough to make her wonder. Was he already deciding if she was worth trusting, or if she'd fail him like the others? The first week, Deshawn didn't say more than 3 words. He showed up, sat in the back, never raised his hand. But his papers were pristine. Neat handwriting, no corrections. When Lenora asked Miss Jensen, the language arts teacher, about him, she shrugged. Smart, sure, but that kid's in survival mode. You can feel it, like he's planning an exit before he's even arrived. Lenora nodded. She knew the type. Not broken, not lazy, just unclaimed. On Thursday, she spotted him outside the cafeteria during lunch, sitting alone on a concrete planter. No phone, no food, just staring across the street. Lenora sat down next to him. "I heard you like science," she said. Deshawn didn't answer. "You know they're starting robotics club next week. Mr. Jansen's got old drone kits from that grant last year." Still no response. Then he glanced at her just once and said quietly, "Robotics is fake." She raised an eyebrow. "Fake how?" "Like, they want kids like me to build machines but not own anything." That stopped her. Not because it was rude, because it was true. Lenora leaned forward, voice low. "What would you rather build?" He didn't hesitate. "Escape plans." Then he stood and walked off before she could ask what he meant. That weekend, Lenora stayed late Friday night updating intake notes. When she passed the lockers near the back stairwell, she noticed something strange. One of them was slightly open. It was Deshawn's. Inside, taped to the back wall, was a crumpled page from a science magazine. An article about an MIT grad who built anti-surveillance drones from salvaged parts. Next to it, scribbled in red marker, "Nobody makes it out clean." She snapped a photo and closed the locker. By Monday, the paper was gone. Then came the whisper in the hallway. That moment when she saw Deshawn with Marcus Reed, the local recruiter, the one everyone knew of but never confronted. Lenora didn't hesitate. Didn't think about safety or protocol or whether this was her business. She just walked straight toward them. Marcus vanished. Deshawn didn't. He stared at her like he was testing her resolve. Like every adult before her had blinked first. But Lenora didn't blink. "Come with me," she said, voice calm. He didn't move. Not that day. But the next morning, the note appeared in her mailbox. "You're not his mother." Block letters, torn edge, no envelope. She didn't show it to the principal. Didn't tell her colleagues. Instead, she taped it to the inside of her office drawer. And underneath it she scribbled something in pen. "No, but I'm close enough." That week, Deshawn missed 2 days, then 3. By Friday, the front office confirmed he hadn't been signed out. No emergency contact. Lenora tried calling the number listed on his file disconnected. She went to the address. Boarded up, abandoned. His locker empty. His desk cleared. It was like he'd never existed. At the next staff meeting, when she raised the issue, the response was predictable. Not our responsibility. Probably ran off with family. Not worth filing a report. Even the principal, a soft-spoken man who always smiled too much, patted her shoulder. Lenora, you care too much. These kids, sometimes they choose the street. We can't save them all. She wanted to scream. Instead, she nodded, then walked out, because deep down she knew the truth. Deshawn didn't choose the street. The street had been waiting for him, and she hadn't moved fast enough. Not this time. 3 weeks passed. Fall crept in curling leaves along the school fence line. Pumpkin decorations appeared on classroom windows, and the cafeteria started serving hot cocoa in paper cups. But for Lenora, everything felt dimmer. She kept checking the back stairwell, glanced at the planter outside the cafeteria, paused in front of locker 1132, half expecting to see another page taped inside. Nothing. Then one morning, while unlocking her office, she noticed something odd. The door was slightly ajar. She pushed it open, every nerve alert. But nothing was missing. No sign of forced entry. Just a single sheet of notebook paper left on her desk, folded once, no name. She opened it carefully. I didn't run. I got taken. I'll be back. Don't tell. Lenora sat down slowly. The handwriting was unmistakable. It was Deshawn. She didn't tell the principal, didn't file a report, didn't even call the school police officer. She just waited. She told herself it was the right thing, that to betray his trust might bury whatever fragile thread still connected them. But deep down she felt helpless, like watching a child try to swim in open water with no shore in sight. The first sighting came 2 days later. One of the 8th graders, Maya, came into the counselor's office during third period. Said she saw that new boy, the quiet one behind the field fence, during lunch. He looked tired, she said, and hungry. Lenora kept her voice even. You sure it was him? Maya nodded. He had that same army backpack, the one with the duct tape on the strap. Lenora exhaled slowly. Okay, you did the right thing. That afternoon she skipped the staff meeting and walked the perimeter behind the field. It was mostly overgrown brambles, broken fences, and a rusted-out maintenance shed. She stood quietly for a few minutes, just listening. Then she saw it. A faint glimmer of reflection from the edge of the shed roof. And then, a voice. Soft, dry. You're not supposed to be here. She turned. There he was, hunched on a milk crate. Same backpack. Eyes, sunken cheeks leaner, but alive. Neither are you, she said gently. Deshawn looked down. I needed a place. You scared me. He didn't reply. She stepped closer. You said you were taken. Who took you? His voice dropped to a whisper. Marcus. Lenora froze. He wanted me to run stuff. Said I owed him because he gave me food. Said I was already out so nobody would look. And did you? She asked softly. Deshawn nodded. Twice. Then I ran. She crouched beside him. Why come back here? He looked at her like it should have been obvious. Only place I ever met someone who didn't look through me. Her chest tightened. I want to help, but you have to let me. He shook his head. You tell I disappear for real. No shelters, no cops. Then what? He reached into his backpack and pulled out a spiral notebook. Open to a page covered in grids, wiring sketches, tiny notes. I've been building a jammer, from scraps, for phones, trackers, anything. I can disappear on my own. Lenora stared at the page. It was crude, but it wasn't fantasy. It was advanced. She exhaled. You're brilliant, but you shouldn't have to use that brilliance to vanish. He didn't answer, so she made a choice. Then let me offer something different. The next week a change occurred in room B12, the old supply room nobody used anymore. Lenora got approval from the janitor to keep the lights working, claimed it was for storage reclassification. What she didn't say was that room B12 had a direct back door hidden by the north stairwell, and that she gave Deshawn the only key. No one else knew. Inside, she stocked a small desk, a cot with clean sheets, and a portable charger she paid for herself. Each afternoon after the last bell, Deshawn would slip inside quietly. Work on his notebook, eat the sandwich she left, sleep under the radar. Each morning he vanished before the first period bell. He called it neutral ground. She called it hope. By late November, she noticed something new. He smiled. Not often, not wide, but enough. Once she caught him correcting a ninth grader's homework behind the bleachers. Another time she found a fresh poster taped to her door. They don't know how to hold us, so we build our own arms. Underneath, written in black ink, DS. But peace doesn't last long in places like Halifax Middle. One Thursday near dusk, Lenora came in late after a dentist appointment. As she walked down the back hall, she heard the unmistakable sound of raised voices. Near room B12, she froze. Two shadows, one tall, one smaller. Marcus and Deshawn. She moved fast, heart thudding. Turned the corner just as Marcus shoved Deshawn hard against the lockers. You think you're smart, huh? Hiding behind teachers? You don't belong to them. Lenora didn't shout. She just stepped in calm as stone. You need to leave. Now. Marcus laughed low and mean. This ain't your fight, lady. It is now. He stepped forward, eyes narrowed. And then, for the first time, Deshawn spoke up. Loud, steady. She's not afraid of you, and neither am I. Marcus flinched. Not much, but enough. He backed off slowly. You're going to regret this. Then he vanished into the stairwell. Lenora turned to Deshawn. His lip was bleeding, his knuckles scraped. But he didn't cry, didn't flinch, just stood there breathing hard. I didn't run, he said. She nodded, voice soft. No, you didn't. Then she opened the door to room B12. Come inside. We're not done yet. It didn't go unnoticed. 2 days after the hallway altercation, Lenora was called into the principal's office. Mr. Greer, a tired man with permanent coffee stains on his tie, folded his hands and gave her a look that always preceded something bad. Got a report, he said. Said you intervened in an altercation between two students, off record, after hours. Lenora nodded. Correct. Care to explain why I'm just now hearing about it? Because I diffused it. No injuries, no escalation, no police necessary. Greer sighed. This school has policies, Lenora. She met his gaze evenly. And it has children being hunted by older kids with records longer than their transcripts. Marcus isn't just a student anymore. He's running recruitment. You have proof. I have bruises. And a boy who's afraid to go home. Greer leaned back. You're playing a dangerous game. She didn't flinch. I'm trying to change the rules. That night, she left room B12 unlocked. Inside, she placed 2 items on the cot. A prepaid flip phone. A note. If you need to disappear, press 2. I'll come. If you want to stay, press 1. We'll build something here. Either way, I'll respect it. She waited. An hour passed. Then 2. No message, no call, just silence. The next morning, she found the phone still on the cot. Face up, screen cracked, and the number 1 still pressed in. From that day forward, things changed. Deshawn started coming to school during daylight. At first, just 1 period science class, then another, then a full schedule minus gym. His attendance was never perfect. Some days he vanished, but he always came back. By December, other kids noticed, started calling him Professor D. He didn't laugh, but he didn't mind either. Lenora watched it unfold like watching a seed push up through concrete. Every lunch break, he'd sit by the window in her office, sketching blueprints in his battered notebook. One day, she asked what he was drawing. A satellite disruptor, he said. Just theoretical. But it could black out GPS over a small radius. She blinked. Why would you need that? His eyes didn't lift from the page. I don't, but I like knowing I could. A week before winter break, the first official notice came. Deshawn had been nominated by Mr. Ellington, the physics teacher, for the Regional Engineering Showcase. Lenora stared at the form in disbelief. He's never even submitted a project, she said. Mr. Ellington smiled faintly. He submitted 12, under fake names. One of them is already being reviewed by a university. Lenora called Deshawn into her office that afternoon, held up the nomination slip. He looked at it, expression unreadable. You're angry, he asked. No, she said, just confused. I didn't want people looking at me. But now they are. He nodded slowly. I guess I'm tired of hiding. A pause. I'm not used to being seen for the right things. She smiled. Get used to it. Winter break arrived with frost on the windows and cheap garlands in the halls. Most students scattered. Some went to relatives, others to trouble. Lenora stayed. She kept room B12 open, left the heat on, left sandwiches and notebooks on the cot, and every evening the door clicked shut from the inside. But Halifax Middle, for all its rough edges, wasn't without spies, and it wasn't long before word got out that some kid was living in the school. It came from a whisper passed between locker doors, then from a janitor's cousin, then from Marcus. On the first Monday back, just before second period, Deshawn was pulled from class. By the time Lenora reached the front office, he was already surrounded. Mr. Greer, the school police officer, and a woman in a beige jacket holding a clipboard Child Protective Services. "He's not registered at a permanent address," the woman said flatly. "And he's technically still a ward of the state." Lenora's voice rose. "He's been attending class. He's made progress. He's a minor," she snapped, "and he's been squatting." Lenora turned to Deshawn. His face was pale eyes wide, but his jaw was locked. She knelt beside him. "You want to go with them," she whispered. He shook his head barely. She stood up. "You're making a mistake," she told the CPS agent. The woman didn't flinch. "Maybe, but it's not your decision." They took him away in a silver van with no plates, just like that. Room B12 stayed locked after that. Lenora sat on the cot for a long time that evening, didn't turn on the light, didn't eat the sandwich she'd brought. She just sat there, silent, waiting for a knock that never came. 2 weeks passed. The halls felt colder. The school felt louder, like someone had unplugged the last quiet thing it had. Lenora buried herself in counseling sessions. She still got fragments of news. Maya said she saw Marcus bragging about finally getting that geek caught. Mr. Ellington said the Regional Engineering Showcase accepted one of Deshawn's ghost projects, though it was under the pseudonym J. Nobody. She wanted to scream, but she didn't. Instead, she waited and hoped and checked the back door of room B12 every morning. Then one Tuesday morning, she found something. A new sheet taped to the inside of the locker. Not locker 1132. Her own. Folded, no name. Just 2 words. "Still building." She leaned her forehead against the cool metal, then smiled and whispered, "Me too." Spring returned to Halifax Middle like it had somewhere better to be. Rain came often, and the building creaked like it was shaking off a long illness. But in room B12, something new was growing. Lenora had reopened it, quietly. She never said why. Students assumed it was her break room. A few joked it was a meditation space. No one asked too many questions. But every now and then she'd find evidence. A screwdriver left behind, a pencil stub sharpened to a nub, a paper airplane folded from a physics worksheet. He was back. Not always in person, but in presence. She stopped asking how. Stopped questioning when.
Instead, she let it happen.
One Thursday afternoon, she found an envelope on her desk. No stamp, no name, just a triangle folded into the seal. Inside a photo, black and white. Deshawn standing in front of a half-built engine made of junkyard scraps and desk fans. Behind him, a wall covered in diagrams. A caption scrawled on the back in faint graphite. Not for show, for escape. She stared at it for a long time, then placed it in her desk drawer, next to her old teaching certificate. Meanwhile, Marcus's grip on the school was changing. He'd grown bolder since Deshawn's removal, wandering into classes mid-period, speaking over teachers recruiting younger students with promises of protection. But something shifted. The hallways weren't as silent around him anymore. Eyes started staying up instead of looking down. One morning, someone spray-painted a message across his locker. "We see you." By lunch, it was cleaned off, but the message had landed. A week later, Maya pulled Lenora aside. "There's a rumor," she said, "that someone hacked Marcus's burner phone, turned it into a GPS tag. He's being tracked." Lenora kept her face neutral. "By who?" Maya shrugged. "Ghosts, rebels, maybe a kid who never really left." At first, Lenora thought it was a joke. Then she started noticing things. Marcus showing up late to his usual corners. Wrong entrances, wrong exits. It was as if someone knew where he'd be and beat him there. More students started showing up to class. The lunchroom was louder. Even the teachers smiled more. It was subtle, but it was real. Something was shifting. On the first Monday of May, Lenora found a file slipped under her door. No markings, no folder, just a thick stack of printed papers and screenshots. Surveillance logs, schedules, a flowchart detailing Marcus's movement patterns over 6 weeks, and a note clipped to the top. Change isn't loud, it's surgical. She sat at her desk, heart racing. It was more than data. It was a blueprint for dismantling a machine. She brought it to Mr. Greer. He didn't want to look at it, didn't want the headache, didn't want the war. But Lenora laid it all out and said just one thing: we can't pretend not to see anymore. The board was involved within days, and then the city, and then the police. Not the kind that arrived screaming with lights, the kind that came with clipboards, badges, and quiet urgency. Marcus was suspended pending investigation. Some said it was permanent. Others whispered he'd transferred to a disciplinary academy in another state. No one missed him. Not really. By the last week of school, Halifax felt different. Still broken in places, still bruised, but breathing again. Lenora found students in the library after hours, kids in the garden club actually planting things. One even asked about starting a robotics team. She said yes, then doubled the budget herself. The last day of the semester arrived with heat waves and sweat-soaked shirts. Students rushed the halls with yearbooks and melted popsicles. Lenora stood in the courtyard handing out flyers for the summer bridge program. One boy she barely knew took a slip, nodded, and whispered, "Thanks for keeping him safe." She looked up, but he was already gone. That evening, room B12 was quiet. Too quiet. She walked in, found everything in place, except for the cot. It was gone. In its place, a wooden stool and a single page resting on the desk. No envelope, no signature, just a single sentence. Blueprints are for people who plan to return. She sat down and let the weight of the sentence settle. It wasn't a goodbye. It was a promise. Later that night, she took a walk around the school. Lights flickered in hallway C. Locker 1132 was still dented but clean. She smiled and kept walking, then stopped, because she saw it, just behind the gym, in the alley where the trash bin sat. A bicycle, painted matte black, with solar wiring strapped to the frame, and propped against the wall beside it, a folded piece of cardboard with 3 words. Room still open. Lenora didn't cry, but her chest did that tight thing again. She bent down, unfolded the note fully. On the back scribbled blueprints for a mobile coding lab. And beneath that one more line, Phase 2 begins soon. She looked up at the sky, a pale orange glow melting into blue, the kind of sky that promised change. Not loud, not sudden, but steady and real. The summer rolled into Halifax like it was trying to make amends. Sunlight leaked through every crack in the roof, and the weeds outside looked less like neglect and more like defiant greenery. Lenora stayed late most days, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. Because now, the school didn't just survive, it adapted, and so did she. The summer bridge program kicked off with only 7 students. By week 2, it had doubled. Most came because of curiosity. Some came because they'd heard that Lady lets you build stuff. But a few came looking for something else. They never said it out loud, but Lenora recognized it in their eyes. That silent question, "Will you see me if I don't speak?" She always did. One afternoon, a girl named Keisha asked to stay behind. She was shy, 12, wore her hoodie like armor, and drew galaxies in the corners of her notebooks. Lenora was wiping down tables when she spoke. "Was it true?" Keisha asked. "About the kid who lived in the classroom?" Lenora paused, then sat down beside her. "What did you hear?" Keisha shrugged. That he built a rocket out of old fans, that he tracked down bad guys, that he didn't talk to nobody but still made people listen. Lenora smiled. "All of that sounds about right." Keisha looked away, then whispered, "Was he like broken?" Lenora took a long breath. "No," she said. "He was bent, but he bent himself into something useful. That's not broken." Keisha nodded but didn't say more. The next day, she brought in a blueprint for a 3D printer made from recycled cafeteria trays. Lenora found herself grinning. Phase 2 had begun. Every now and then, notes still appeared, folded into code books, taped under chairs, once sewn into the hem of a donated robotics hoodie. Always unsigned, always precise. They weren't just messages. They were instructions. Wiring diagrams, load distribution tables, encryption keys for classroom laptops that were mysteriously faster now. It was clear. Deshawn hadn't left. Not completely.
Later.
But he didn't visit either. Not in the flesh. Never in the hallways. Never during daylight. And so the stories grew. Some said he built a drone that watched the school from abandoned rooftops. Others claimed he'd enrolled in an online university under a fake name. One janitor swore he once saw a shadow slip out of room B12 just before sunrise, hood up, backpack tight, walking like a ghost that knew exactly where it was going. Lenora never confirmed, never denied, just smiled and said, "Some kids graduate different." In August, she received an envelope with no return address, inside a single key. Heavy, brass, unmarked, and a map. It led to an old storage facility near the harbor. She went on a Sunday. The space was quiet dust dancing in sunbeams. But inside, tucked behind a stack of broken vending machines, was a door with a matching lock. The room beyond was small and filled to the brim. Laptops, drones, salvaged camera parts, textbooks with margins scribbled in code. And in the center, a whiteboard with a title written in block letters, the Halifax Guild Project. At the bottom, a roster, blank, except for one name, Deshawn. Oh, she left the room untouched. Locked it, kept the key, didn't tell the school board, didn't involve the city. Some things aren't made for adults to explain. Some things just are. Fall came, and with it a new crop of students, more curious, more fearless. Lenora taught her classes like always. But on Fridays she held guild hours, unofficial, unlisted. Kids just knew. If you had a project, a plan, a blueprint, you brought it to guild hours. And maybe, just maybe, someone would help you build it. One day, while organizing a toolkit, she felt a shift behind her, a presence. She turned and saw him, older now, maybe 15, a little taller. Voice not quite as deep as he wanted it to be. Deshawn didn't speak, just nodded and placed a hard drive on her desk, then turned and walked away. No dramatics, no hugs, no spotlight, just a quiet, clear message. Still here. Later that night, she plugged the drive into her laptop. Inside, blueprints for a mobile STEM lab, curriculum for peer-led tech literacy programs, a proposal for the Halifax Guild Charter, a student-run collective for building, sharing, and teaching innovation, and finally one video file, titled simply for the next one. She played it. Deshawn's face appeared, lit only by desk lamp, voice quiet. Sure, if you're watching this, it means you're thinking about quitting, or hiding, or giving up. He leaned forward. I get it. I've been all three. A pause. But if someone believed in you enough to show you this, then maybe you don't get to disappear yet. His voice cracked a little, then steadied. Change doesn't knock loud. It slips in, builds slow, root by root, one kid at a time. He reached for something off-screen, then whispered, "Build what you needed. Be who you missed. And if they ask who started it, don't say my name." He smiled. Say it was yours. Fade to black. Lenora sat there long after the video ended, the glow from her laptop screen fading into the dark. The school creaked around her, alive, changing. And outside, past the cracked windows and tired brick walls, Halifax slept easy, because somewhere a new boy was waking up. Not to fight, not to hide, but to build, quietly, relentlessly, beautifully. Have you ever wondered how many lives were changed just because someone chose to stay? Not to fix things, not to save anyone, just to be there. Sometimes that's all it takes. If you've ever been that person or needed someone like that, share it in the comments. Your story matters. And if this one spoke to you, feel free to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell. Thanks for staying till the end. We'll see you in the next one.